For months, a Russian troop buildup along Ukraine's border raised fears of a wider conflict in Eastern Europe. Countless meetings between NATO, American and Russian officials were held, but showed little progress. Now, Turkiye's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan is the latest leader to step in. He arrived in Kiev on Thursday to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The two leaders marked the 30th anniversary of establishing diplomatic ties with several agreements, including a long-awaited free trade deal. Both hailed the pact as historic and set a near-term goal of $10 billion a year in trade. On the defense front, President Zelensky praised the deal that will expand UAV production in Ukraine. The Ukrainian army already possesses dozens of Turkish-made drones and has used them against Russian-backed separatists in the country's east. President Erdogan's visit comes amid a tense standoff between Russia and NATO over Ukraine. Moscow has denied it plans to invade, but has demanded that NATO address its security concerns in Eastern Europe. And to discuss the outcome of this meeting further, I'm joined now by Elif Çalık. She is an independent researcher and a Turkish foreign policy expert based in London. And in Kiev, we have Ilya Kusa. He is an analyst at the Ukrainian Institute for the Future, an independent think tank based in the Ukrainian capital. A warm welcome to you both. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Ilya, talk to us about the significance of Turkish President Erdogan's visit to Ukraine, how important it is for the two countries to be able to sign this long-awaited free trade agreement, as well as a comprehensive defense deal amid this crisis between Russia and Ukraine.
Hello, thank you for having me. Well, to start with, I should notice that Turkey is among countries with which relations are being developed very dynamically. I mean, actually, Turkey is one of crucial partners of Ukraine on our southern diplomatic flank, so to speak. And of course, Erdogan's visit is one of the latest. There were several of those during only President Zelensky's time in 2 years.
Yes.
And of course, it is very important because we have very much to talk about, starting from trade, investments in infrastructure, and finally about military and technological cooperation.
Yes. So, what kind of benefits would these agreements bring for both sides? How would this free trade agreement change the trajectory of bilateral ties?
First of all, as you know, this year, Turkey and Ukraine mark 30 years of strategic relations of diplomacy. So last year, trade volume was 35%. And this year, there are 700 countries in Ukraine running on behalf of Turkey. So when you see all these agreements, including all these agreements, what they earn as a revenue, all these countries, of course, they will bring back to Turkey. Mm-hmm. So in terms of defense industry, Turkey is the first Ukraine is the first country in the region who bought Turkish domestic drones, Bayraktars.
Yes.
It's $69 million deal signed in 2019. So, of course, it is strategically very important meeting.
Yes. So, Ilya, Russia has previously signaled its displeasure over the sale of Turkish drones to Ukraine, which were used against separatists in eastern Ukraine. But Turkey says it will stick to its trade commitments and won't disrupt them to please third countries. So, how delicate of a balance does Turkey have to maintain here?
Well, I think Turkey actually maintained this balance. So I don't think that the batch of Bayraktar drones which were sold to Ukraine and this agreement on building a factory for manufacture and then will, in any case, significantly change the military balance of power between Ukraine and Russia. So I don't think that Russia is that concerned about Erdogan's visit and Turkey-Ukraine cooperation. Of course, it is an irritant for Russia because Russia is really very, they are always worried when another country is trying to, in their view, intervene in what they see as their zone of influence, especially in military sphere. But again, as I said, I don't think this is something that could pose a really strategic threat to Russia's position towards, for example, conflict with Ukraine. That's why I think that reaction from Moscow will be negative, but not that critical, and it will not affect Turkish-Russian relations significantly, to my mind.
Yeah. So President Erdogan announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin will be visiting Turkey after Beijing, where he is attending the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. What will those talks would like? Can a face-to-face meeting between Erdogan and Putin help lower tensions in eastern Ukraine?
Clearly, Moscow will welcome Turkey's mediation role. But first of all, let's start with quick historical flashback. If you remember, when Russia secretly deployed missile during this Cold War in 1962, United States deployed troops into the Cuba border and wanted to defend itself as well as a reaction. So now Russia wants to do the same thing to defend itself against NATO. So on the other hand, Putin has, as you know, Soviet Union dream, because he wasn't pleased when Soviet Union was dismantled. So after President Erdogan's visit to Kiev on Thursday, it is clear that Russia wants to take back control of the Black Sea region, and Russia doesn't have any issue with Turkey.
Yes.
Russia has issue with NATO. So it is very important in which context Putin and Erdogan will sit after this visit.
So
will Moscow see Turkey as part of NATO or as part of its military and trade ally in this mediation role? It is the most important point, actually.
But Turkey is the both, I guess. So, Ilya, Turkey's approach to the crisis has been consistent, standing by Ukraine, but not also antagonizing Russia. So Moscow has accused the U.S. of trying to provoke this into a conflict, given all many intelligence reports that the U.S. has shared publicly, including a recent one about a possible false flag attack. Is President Biden being deliberately provocative in this conflict? And what is the U.S. strategy here?
No, I don't think it can be called provocative, because, again, I actually don't think this whole situation between the United States and Russia is about Ukraine only. What we are witnessing now is mainly an information and political clash between the United States and Russia, and all these information. All these news which we see in media outlets, especially in the Western ones, I think this is only to strengthen the position of that party to the negotiations. Because what is going on, the crucial process which is going on, is the Geneva security dialogue, the so-called security dialogue between the U.S. and Russia, and this is what it is all about. So it is. Ukraine here is just one of the topics that the United States and Russia are eager to negotiate, although the two countries, they have very different view on actually what they are negotiating about. Russia is thinking more globally and politically, while the United States are trying to confine negotiations to more technical and smaller questions like Ukraine, for example.
So, President Erdogan, as he was leaving Ukraine, said that the U.S. President Biden had not shown a positive approach to the process as of now, and that the meetings have shown no progress. Has Biden done little to lower tensions, or maybe even worsened them?
Yeah, in this regard, actually, between United States and as a NATO member, between United States and Russia, if Erdogan convinced Putin regarding a red line that NATO will not extend its military influence into Russia's influence, which was the biggest security demand in Putin's checklist submitted to NATO in last December, I think he will convince Putin in terms of Biden's reaction in this conflict.
So, Ilya, do you believe that President Erdogan will be able to bring these two leaders together and help them at least lower the tensions?
Well, I believe that theoretically, the mediation offer which Erdogan brought to the table during negotiations with President Zelensky is well, it can be a reality. So they can organize a meeting, for example, in Istanbul or Ankara between Zelensky and Putin. The only problem I see here is that the problem with Ukraine-Russia negotiations is not in the format of negotiations, or it's not because we have bad mediators or something, or we have lack of them. It's because Russia and Ukraine has very different perception on the nature of the conflict, on its causes, and on the way how to implement the so-called Minsk agreements, which are seen today as the main basis for peace. So for me, it is still unclear how Turkey can fundamentally change positions of both Ukraine and Russia towards this. But anyway, any such dialogues, if this will materialize, are more positive than negative, because actually negotiations between Ukraine and Russia has been stalled for almost 1.5 years.
All right, Ilya Elif, unfortunately, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.